Lila woke up to the soft glow of morning sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. The room was quiet, unusually quiet, and for a moment she felt a strange emptiness. Usually she could hear her mother moving in the kitchen, humming a gentle tune or calling out to her in that warm, familiar voice. But today there was only silence. She swung her legs off the bed and walked toward the door, her bare feet brushing against the wooden floor. She paused for a moment, listening intently, hoping to catch even a whisper of her mother's presence. Nothing. A wave of unease settled over her. Lila's heart felt heavy, as if she could hear the absence of sound more than anything else. Downstairs, the house was still. The kitchen smelled faintly of yesterday's tea, but there was no sign of life. Lila's mother had been her constant comfort, her guiding voice through every small fear and worry. She could almost remember the sound of her mother calling her for breakfast, soft laughter filling the air, and the rhythm of a daily life that felt safe and steady. Lila moved toward the living room. She sat on the sofa, hugging her knees, trying to calm the sudden knot of worry inside her chest. She remembered the countless nights when her mother's voice had soothed her fears, when simple words like, "It's okay, I'm here," had made the world feel lighter. That voice was more than sound. It was a presence, a reassurance, a home. Suddenly, the phone rang, piercing the quiet. Lila jumped, her hands trembling as she reached for it. On the other end, a gentle but serious voice spoke. It was not her mother. It was the doctor. Lila listened, unable to fully process the words, as a feeling of loss began to sink in. Her mother had passed away during the night. Peacefully, the doctor said, in her sleep. For a moment, Lila could not speak. She held the phone tightly, feeling the weight of the news pressing down on her. The house was empty, the rooms silent, and the absence of her mother's voice seemed to echo louder than anything else. She thought of every morning, every whispered encouragement, every gentle song, and now it was gone. Tears welled up in her eyes as Lila walked to her mother's room. The bed was neatly made, the familiar scent of her mother lingering faintly in the air. Everything looked the same, yet something important was missing. She sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers over the soft blankets, remembering the countless times her mother had tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Sleep well, my love." On the small table beside the bed lay her mother's favorite book and a half-empty cup of tea. Lila picked up the book, the cover worn from years of reading, and opened it carefully. Inside, she found a bookmark with a note in her mother's handwriting. The words were simple, heartfelt, and full of love. Lila traced each letter with her fingers, feeling a small comfort in the tangible memory of her mother. As the day went on, relatives came to offer support. They spoke in hushed tones, hugging each other, trying to fill the silence with soft words. But Lila often retreated to quiet corners of the house, seeking solace in the memories of her mother's voice. She remembered how it had always guided her, corrected her gently, celebrated her victories, and comforted her during failures. That evening, Lila sat by the window, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood, the distant hum of cars, children laughing, birds calling. She imagined her mother's voice weaving through the air, comforting her, even though it was only a memory now. She realized that though her mother was gone, the lessons, love, and care she had given were still alive in her heart. Late at night, Lila took out her mother's notebook and began writing. She wrote about her day, about her feelings, and about the memories that made her smile and ache at the same time. Each word was a conversation with the voice she could no longer hear. It was her way of keeping that voice alive, of making the absence feel less empty. In the quiet hours, she could almost hear her mother whispering encouragement, reminding her to be brave, to be kind, and to trust herself. Leela realized that her mother's voice was more than just sound. It was a presence she carried within her. It shaped the way she thought, the way she spoke, and the way she treated the people around her. As days turned into weeks, Leela learned to live with the silence. She found that though her mother's voice was no longer physically there, it echoed in every part of her life. When she helped a friend, when she offered kind words, when she made difficult decisions, she could hear the guidance and love of that voice within her. She visited her mother's favorite places, walked along familiar streets, and played the songs her mother loved. Each sound, each memory, each small act reminded her of the voice that had shaped her. Slowly, the ache of loss transformed into a quiet, steady strength, a resilience that came from love and guidance. One afternoon, while reading by the window, Leela closed her eyes and imagined her mother's voice again. She could hear the soft tones, warm and comforting, telling her she was never alone. Leela smiled through tears, realizing that her mother's presence had not disappeared. It lived within her, in the way she laughed, spoke, and cared for others. Leela understood something important. The sound of a loved one's voice never truly leaves us. It lingers, shaping our actions, guiding our hearts, and comforting us in ways words cannot fully capture. She felt grateful for the memories, the love, and the guidance that would stay with her forever. And in that quiet evening, with the sun setting softly outside her window, Lila whispered a gentle thank you into the room. Though her mother could not answer, Lila felt the warmth of her voice surround her, a silent promise that love and care never truly fade, and that every word spoken with kindness continues to echo in the hearts of those we cherish. The morning felt different as Lila opened her eyes. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, painting stripes across her floor. But it wasn't just the light that felt strange. It was the quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you notice the spaces where a familiar presence used to be. Lila's mother had always been the first sound of the house, humming, calling, or laughing in her gentle way. That sound was gone now, and the silence felt heavy. Lila got out of bed slowly, her heart beating a little faster with a mix of fear and longing. She paused in the hallway, remembering the mornings when her mother would sing softly while cooking breakfast. Even the smallest noises, clinking of cups, the scrape of a chair, used to feel like music to her. Now, all of it was still, as if the house itself was holding its breath. She went to the kitchen and looked around. Everything was in place, the same teacups, the same table, the same sunlight falling across the countertop, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Lila's eyes filled with tears as she realized how much life her mother's voice had carried in these rooms. It had been more than sound. It had been comfort, guidance, and reassurance all wrapped into one. Trying to hold herself together, Leela picked up her mother's favorite mug. The warmth of the ceramic was real, but the warmth she craved, the laughter, the advice, the gentle reminders, was missing. She ran her fingers along the rim, imagining her mother's smile, her soft tone saying, "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything will be fine." The memory made her chest ache. She remembered small moments from yesterday and years ago, the way her mother would read bedtime stories, her voice rising and falling with excitement or calm, the careful way she listened when Leela had worries or dreams. Those sounds had shaped her childhood, given her courage in moments she hadn't even understood, and now, without them, Leela felt a strange emptiness inside her. Determined to feel connected, Leela went to her mother's room. She opened the wardrobe and saw her mother's clothes neatly hung, the familiar scent lingering faintly. She sat on the edge of the bed and picked up a scarf, holding it close. Memories of whispered encouragement and gentle words came flooding back, each one carrying the comfort of a love that had been her foundation. For hours, Leela moved quietly through the house, touching familiar objects, remembering the stories behind each item. She opened drawers, found handwritten notes, old photographs, and recipes her mother had carefully tucked away. Every small thing spoke of her mother's presence, and though the voice was gone, the essence of her love remained in every corner of the home. By afternoon, Leela went to the garden. She sat beneath the tree her mother had planted years ago, feeling the sunlight on her face. A breeze passed through the leaves, and she imagined the soft tone of her mother's voice riding on it. In her mind, she could hear encouragement, love, and laughter mingling with the rustling of branches. It was a comforting illusion, but it reminded her that love persists, even in silence. That evening, Leela wrote in her notebook. She wrote about her feelings, the memories that made her smile, and the ones that made her cry. She wrote as if speaking to her mother, letting the words carry the voice she missed so deeply. The act itself brought a sense of peace. Even though she could not hear the real voice anymore, she realized she could carry it inside herself, letting it guide her thoughts and actions. By nightfall, as the stars appeared and the house settled into gentle quiet, Leela felt a subtle shift in her heart. The silence was no longer just empty, it was a space filled with memory, love, and the echo of lessons taught by a voice that would never leave her. She understood that the sound of her mother's voice had become part of her, living within her and shaping who she would be.